Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 112 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 38 of A Clash of Kings, that's Arya 8.
As always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll help you particularly if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing just fine this morning. How about you?
I'm good. I've already mowed the grass. I'm feeling very virtuous.
Wow, all right.
Getting things done here.
It's cooler.
It is a lot cooler, which is nice. Yeah.
Especially if you're doing it so early in the morning. It was good to see you on Wednesday this past week.
Oh, yeah, we saw each other.
Yes, we had lunch together.
Event. Oh, we even had lunch, that's right.
We did, yes. We, not even just you and me, we had a whole men's day out to lunch. We had lunch with three other guy friends of ours at work. That was, that was the first time I had been in my office in a year and a half since March or mid-March of 2020. And so I went into my office. I just opened my laptop and I was working off my laptop with the laptop screen. Didn't bother plugging in to my monitors or anything. And I was working away and not really thinking too much about anything. And then I just noticed that behind my laptop where my monitors sit, one of them was missing. And I was like, I know I can count to 2, and there's 1, but not where could this monitor have gone? So then my office is not that big, but I'm like wandering around my office, looking behind the door, and behind, like where could this monitor have gone? Because I didn't bring any monitors or keyboard or anything home with me when we started working remote. So I was like, well, what do I do now?
Well, just to give you the other end of that seesaw. Do you know the word seesaw? Does that mean anything to you? Teeter-totter?
Yes. Yeah. I'm with you on that one.
I have been going round the offices in my building, pillaging interesting-looking stuff. so that's I'm going to guess that's what's happened to you.
So yeah, so I emailed my manager and I was like, this is a weird thing, but one of my monitors is missing. And he said, open a ticket. And so I open a ticket and I get a response back from the other end that says, have you checked with your office neighbors? And I'm like, I'm the only person out of this entire hallway. So who am I going to check with?
What they mean is go check their offices.
Right, that is
the guy who's got 4 monitors.
He should have been more specific. I should have gone and checked for I don't even know if I could identify it a year and a half later.
Yeah, I think that's happening. So I mean, as long as nobody listens to this, I can confess I've got a brand new desk chair, office chair, very nice, a significant upgrade. I've got a mouse which is like top of the range. It's all kinds of fancy. It's ergonomic, and I've just been like sniffing around. Whenever I think someone's not been back for a long enough time, I just take what's there.
I guess that's what happened. Yeah.
I did replace though where I could. I replaced. I mean, I gave the person who's going to come back to a dodgy chair will find a chair. Ditto mouse person. Just not as good.
They'll be like, boy, I swear this mouse was a lot nicer 2 years ago. I guess everything's aged. Oh, man. But there's got to have been nicer monitors than my old, 10-year-old monitor that they walked off with. Unless they had a 15-year-old monitor and thought, this is a slight upgrade. I don't want to go too out of control here. Anyway.
So I've been to the beach.
Yes.
We had a nice time at the beach. But there's a busy road at the beach, and Penny got off leash and ran across that road.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, scared the bejesus out of me.
Was there traffic at the time, or did it happen to be late at night or anything?
It was middle of the day, so there was plenty of traffic, and we were running towards the road. I was running after her, trying to get her to not do it. and this, where we were, was like a parking lot which ran all the way to the road, so nobody could see her coming.
Oh,
Goodness. She
goodness.
was blocked. Yeah, so it was simply a matter of would she hit a gap in the traffic or not, but, oh man.
Based on the fact that you're telling the story with a slight smile on your face, I assume Penny has survived unscathed.
She got through it unscathed, but
right.
When I got to the road following her, there was traffic. I had to stop and wait for the traffic.
The dog got across okay, but you got hit by 3 cars.
Well, if she can... All right, let's get down to business.
Okay.
How do we leave Arya Stark? Last we saw of Arya, she was adjusting to life at Harrenhal under the supervision of Weese. She considered revealing her true identity to Medja Serwyn, a northern captive and friend of her father's, but he died before she had the chance. She watched as Jaqen H'ghar rode into the castle alongside Rorge and Biter in the service of Amory Lorch. Later, Jaqen offered her 3 deaths for the 3 lives she saved, Jaqen, Rorge and Biter, at the Holdfast. After hearing an awful story of rape and murder from one of Sir Gregor's henchmen, Chiswick, she decided to test Jaqen's offer and give him Chiswick's name. 3 days later, Chiswick fell to his death from a wall.
Huh.
Coincidence.
How about that?
Mackelly, why don't we give them the summary of this one?
All right. I think it was the ghost of Harrenhal that pushed Chiswick off.
Possibly. Well, Chiswick has become one.
It's true, yes. So Arya watches amid the chaotic hustle and bustle of the castle, as Sir Adam Marbrand and his men make a spectacle of themselves as they ride from Harrenhal, much to the chagrin of the women of the castle. Arya wishes nothing but ill tidings for Adam and his men, because she knows they're riding for battle against her brother Robb. News of Robb's victories in the west have reached Harrenhal, but reliable specifics have been harder to come by. He's burned Lannisport. He's taken Casterly Rock and put everyone to the sword. He's besieging the Golden Tooth.
She's heard all these rumours and more, but it's clear something good, or bad, depending on your perspective, has happened in the west. Arya has little time to dwell on her brother's successes, though, as Weese keeps her on the move. She's been running messages for him to various people throughout the castle. Thinking her as a common urchin, he doesn't imagine she can read, so he doesn't bother sealing the messages. So she reads all of them, as boring and mundane as they are.
Her messenger duties often take her outside of the castle, into the throng of the camp beyond its walls. While in the camp, Arya realizes how easy it will be to slip into the crowd and disappear. Only one thing prevents her: Weese. It's not fear of his beatings that keep her coming back. It's fear of Vargo Hoat. Weese has threatened to turn any attempted deserters over to Hoat, whom he calls the Crippler, and who will cut off their feet for their transgressions.
On one messenger mission into the camp, Arya does Weese a solid by stealing a silver-banded drinking horn from a knight who owes Weese money, when the knight balks at the request for the payment. This wins her favour with Weese, who offers to share a capon with her at dinner. During all her running, one person she hasn't come across is Jaqen H'ghar. The Lorathi seems to have vanished. This is a concern because he owes Arya 2 more deaths, and she now knows Tywin and his forces will be leaving tomorrow.
Arya discovers that Tywin has named Sir Amory Lorch Castellan of Harrenhal, and as Jaqen is in his service, he should be staying put. She'll just need to find him before many of the men who she'd like to see dead get out of her or Jaqen's reach. Weese sends her out on another messenger task. She's got to go to the armory and get a sword for Sir Lionel. This mission gives her a chance to catch up with Gendry.
Gendry tells her that Potpie has been asking questions. Just last night, he'd asked Gendry if he'd heard Arya call out Winterfell when the fighting broke out at the Holdfast. Gendry, knowing the truth, covered for her and said it was "Go to hell," she shouted, and suggests that she stick with that same story. Arya agrees and has a quick thought of saying Hot Pie's name to Jaqen.
After retrieving the sword for Sir Lionel, Arya likes the feel of it in her hand. It makes her feel like less of a mouse. Again, she has the urge to flee, but resists. She overhears men talking about Robb. It's nonsense about him having giants and being more wolf than man, like all Starks, but it gives her heart to hear it.
That feeling of confidence and strength is wiped away when Weese comes out of nowhere, takes the sword and smacks her in the face for taking too long, leaving her with nothing but a burning hatred for him. He sends her off on another task. On her way, she runs into Rorge. He threatens to do terrible things to her, until she mentions she's looking for Jaqen, not her actual task. Rorge quickly changes his tune and points her towards the bathhouse.
She finds Jaqen in a tub and whispers "Weese" in his ear. At dinner, she thinks Weese has forgotten about the promise of a shared capon. However, with a few pieces of meat left on the bone, he calls her over. She thinks he's remembered and feels bad about whispering his name to Jaqen. Instead, Weese accuses her of staring at him and grabs her by the throat and slaps her.
The next day, Arya watches Tywin and Kevan Lannister ride out, followed by all of the Lannister force, including Sir Gregor. So while watching them leave, that she realises she's been stupid. Weese doesn't matter, no more than Chiswick did. It's these men's names that she should have whispered. Thinking maybe she can change her choice before it's too late, Arya runs into the yard to find Jaqen. When she arrives, she finds Weese dead on the ground, with his own dog gnawing at his face and throat. She looks up from the grisly scene and sees Jaqen. He puts 2 fingers to his face.
Oh. 1 death left.
He's keeping count, apparently.
He is.
Yeah, we told her to be more careful with these 3 wishes.
We did.
She's really blowing them.
Yeah, I guess we could either get into the 3 wishes now or get into it later.
No.
But she, yeah, I guess it depends on if you can excuse her for being 10, you know?
Yeah, right. and plus, Weese kept punching her in the face.
Right.
I'd want to get rid of that person too, you know?
Yes, exactly. Well, I guess we could start at the larger political scale and work our way down to Arya and her 3 death wishes. So we started Tywin's marching, and what that means ultimately for the larger political drama here is that Robb has won the standoff. He's bent Tywin to his will instead of the other way around, basically.
Yeah, although I will say it isn't actually a standoff because Robb moved. Robb moved first.
True, he did move first.
If they had truly been standing off, I think Tywin could have outlasted him. But Robb had to do something. But by doing something, he has done what he hoped to do, which is get Tywin out of that castle.
He drew the lion out of the den, if you will.
Oh, wow, very good.
Yes, I guess I should say he got Tywin to do what Tywin didn't want to do. He imposed his will on Tywin. Although,
I mean, at some point, Tywin had to do something. I mean, sure, you're impregnable in Harrenhal, but you're not helping anyone, you know?
True, yeah. If and when Stannis shows up in King's Landing, he probably would have had to leave Harrenhal for that cause as well. So
right.
But with Amory Lorch, now the Castellan of Harrenhal, I'm not sure that Roose Bolton can just ride in and take it like we had hoped. But at the same time, the small number of just Amory Lorch's 300 men, or that's the size it started out as. I don't know what the numbers are now, but they've got at least 3 from Jaqen, Biter, and Rorge. But they've probably lost a few along the way too. So
True.
But anyway, that small number can't really stop Roose Bolton and his soldiers from doing whatever they want to do. Going,
outside of Harrenhal.
Yes, exactly.
Right, yeah. And you wouldn't be charged with that because the last thing you would want is for Roose Bolton to do something that drew you out of Harrenhal,
right.
And then he circles back around and, you're supposed to be defending the place.
Yes. See, Tywin was, we've discussed this many times, Tywin was in a pretty good spot. He was, at Harrenhal, he was both close to keep an eye on Riverrun, make sure nothing was going on there, and at the same time close to King's Landing, in case he needed to ride to their rescue. And so now this march west feels like it's going to leave King's Landing significantly more unprotected from his forces, or from the protection of his forces, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how far he has to go. I mean, one of the things that I keep thinking Robb might do is retreat back to Riverrun now that he's achieved his primary goal of going to the Westerlands, which was to destroy Stafford Lannister's army. And if he comes back to Riverrun, then Tywin could just say, oh, well, I'll leave him to it and go back to Harrenhal,
Yeah, that's one option. Or he could continue to work toward just dismantling the West.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that's necessarily what Robb should do. It's just Robb has achieved his strategic aim in the West. Now, admittedly, his other strategic aim was to get Tywin out of Harrenhal, and if you do go back to River Run, you allow Tywin to go back to Harrenhal. So,
right, yeah.
All you're doing then is preventing people from harvesting their crops at that point.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering if Tywin had gotten news yet of Renly's death and Stannis acquiring such a large portion of Renly's army, because that's a tough decision to leave King's Landing more unprotected,
right,
by riding west. So he's in a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. His homeland is under siege now, but at the same time, his King's Landing, where his family is, could also very well soon be in a similar situation.
Yep. I will say, just preempting the comparison with the television show, there is no Weese in the television show. Arya works as cupbearer to Tywin Lannister.
Oh, and I remember that.
That decision allows you to answer that question. Obviously, Arya can't possibly know in the book what Tywin Lannister is thinking.
Right.
But in the TV show, you know what Tywin Lannister knows because Arya witnesses it all.
Right.
She knows when he's informed of Renly. She knows, what the word is coming in from the west. She knows all of these things, and she's getting it as close to first hand as possible. I mean, obviously, at various points, Tywin criticizes the quality of the information he's receiving, but she's hearing the same information. She's getting as good as he's getting,
that certainly allows you to get a idea into to Tywin's thinking.
Right. It's kind of unbelievable, but at the same time, it is a much better televisual impact than just watching her get beaten by a Ubergruppenführer,
Right.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. So while she's running the second errand, the errand for Sir Lionel to get his sword, she hears archers talking about Robb and his conquests in the west, and one of them thinks that he's too scared to march on Harrenhal, and of course, more likely he's too smart to march on Harrenhal.
Right.
Because
that archer is never going to be in charge of a war.
It's much better to draw Tywin out than it is to smash yourself to bits on the walls of Harrenhal, which I think, if I remember correctly, that was what Edmure was proposing when he and Robb and Cat were talking, that they should march on Harrenhal. And I think it was Cat that says, well, that's not going to work. That's not a good idea.
Yeah. Edmure's not the smartest, but I will say you do have to sort of talk through the straw man ideas,
Right.
Well, we could besiege Harrenhal. No, terrible idea.
Bad idea. Right. Just brainstorming. Just throwing out ideas here.
I will say, actually, just you're mentioning of Amory Lorch sort of garrisoning Harrenhal. I'm not sure a castle that big, 300 men, is enough. I mean,
right.
All you'd have to do is send, from one end of Harrenhal, you put your main force, and at the other end, you send 400 men over the wall.
Right, 300 men. That's the largest castle in all of Westeros.
Right.
300 men would be like trying to man the wall.
Right. Without
Capital
the 700-foot
W.
advantage. Yeah.
Yes. But then another archer thinks that maybe Robb knows something that they don't, and maybe it's them that should be running. And he might be more hitting the target with his arrow, this archer.
Right.
Because
yes, if your enemy keeps winning, I would begin to think he knows more than you do.
Right, yeah. Especially the way that Robb has won all of his battles, using diversionary tactics, not head-to-head type
situations. Yeah, surprise attacks, diversions. Yeah.
So, it's possible that Robb is anticipating this causing him being in the west, causing Tywin to ride west, and maybe he's got another type setup for them, an ambush or something. Or, just maybe we know Roose is like I just said, he was at the Ruby Ford, so maybe he'll fall in behind Tywin because, like I also said, there's nothing that Amory Lorch can do to stop a multi-thousand troop force. So, maybe they could let Tywin's troops get past River Run. Then you slide Roose's troops to River Run, and now you have Tywin stuck between Robb's force and Roose's force in River Run.
I will say, Roose's force can only be a certain size. It's already lost to that same Tywin army.
That's a good point. It started out as like 12,000 maybe or something like that, and they lost a good bit at the
last time we meant to lose. This time we're fighting to win.
We were fighting with our left hands.
Yeah.
But also, so these archers, there's apparently like fantastical legends already being created about Robb and his men based on their successes in the West. One of them says that he's got giants brought straight from the wall, and I was thinking maybe that was a legend created from the Umbers, from the Great John and Small John Umber.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. And then of course they think that he's more wolf than man, which we've not
always
seen.
Going to happen.
Yeah, we've not seen Robb in a while, but last we saw he was not more wolf than man. So.
No, yeah, I mean, a little unshaven. But...
Right. He's 15. How much shaving does he need to do?
But I think this is a common thing in wars, sort of like your enemy gets either built up to be more than what he is, or demonized in some way, as being something other, inhuman.
Yes.
There's a very good episode of Black Mirror where soldiers in the army are implanted with something that makes them see their enemy as like these alien creatures, these frightening alien creatures.
Oh.
And so the whole time you're seeing this sort of battle between sort of like, human soldiers and these alien creatures. And then it sort of flips and you see the fact that these are just people that they're killing.
Oh.
But they see them that way and it helps them to kill them. They don't have any sort of hesitation in doing it.
It dehumanizes them completely. Yeah.
Oh, was a spoiler alert on that episode of Black Mirror, by the way.
Oh.
Black Mirror.
If you haven't seen it, at least wait a few months till you forget this detail. So the chapter opens with Adam Marbrand marching the day before Tywin and the rest of the forces march. And I was wondering if maybe that's because in the last Bran chapter, we got that letter from Robb, and he was in Ashmark, which is the seat of House Marbrand. So I was wondering if maybe Adam was leaving early to try and retake Ashmark, because there's been no word of his father Daemon. So I don't.
But so do you think that intelligence reached Tywin then to say Ashmark has fallen? Because it seems like a catastrophically bad idea to send a fragment of your force to take on Robb's army.
Right.
This is like the Roose Bolton tactic right here.
Yeah, especially since Arya mentioned or had a thought that it was Sir Gregor that it will be leading the vanguard. So maybe Adam has a separate mission. His mission is try and get Ashmark back. The rest of us are going to go do this other task. Yeah. But I did wonder if maybe Tywin was feeling the pressure to march from his other lords that were concerned about their homelands, much like the Riverland lords did after the Whispering Wood in the Battle at the Camps.
Yeah, in the TV show, there's a scene where someone bringing intelligence from the field says, the Northern Lords are unhappy, they want to get back to harvest their fields. And Tywin says, I'm pretty sure if you asked our men, you'd get the same answer.
Oh, yes, right. Yes. My corn is rotting.
So Arya seriously considers disappearing into the camp while running these messages. You know, she's outside the walls, so she doesn't have to scale the walls. Which again is another difference from the TV show. In the TV show, she never leaves the castle, so she doesn't have that opportunity.
When we get to comparison with the TV
I'll have nothing
show,
left to say.
You'll be like, yeah, what I said earlier, all that stuff.
She could hide in a wagon or blend in with the camp followers. Or once she's got Sir Lionel's sword in hand, she could just get a horse and ride out of there.
Yeah.
And it could work. I mean, she would be, you know, they all have bigger fish to fry than chasing an errant servant girl.
Right. Yeah. By the way, Sir Lionel, he gets kind of secondary references throughout this chapter, and there's no mention of who he is. It's just meant. In fact, at one point, Arya says she's talking about wishing all the men dead, and she includes Sir Lionel, and she thinks whoever he is. So that's who she was sent to get the sword for.
Sir Lionel of the nicked sword.
Right. We don't know exactly who he is, but it's possible that he is Sir Lionel Frey, who is the second son of Aemon Frey and Jenna Lannister. So he is the younger brother to Sir Cleos, who is the envoy between Robb and the Lannisters. And also Weese says that Sir Lionel is riding with Kevin Lannister. So, you know, that would be his uncle as well. So it's possible it could be Sir Lionel Frey. We don't really know, though.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense, though. But she doesn't go because she's so afraid of Weese, but not specifically of Weese, but his threat to give her to Vargo Hoat as a punishment for her escape. And Vargo Hoat has the nickname the Crippler because he chops people's feet off.
Yes.
Yep, that would do it.
Yeah, we met him last Arya chapter. He's the leader of the Brave Companions, a.k.a. the Bloody Mummers, which they're dubbed because of their brutality and outlandish appearance. And also last chapter, in the background, I mentioned that they call him the Footmen, and I said we'll see later why they're called the Footmen. This is why. Because they cut people's feet off.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghosts Harrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
So do you think she could get to River Run?
Yeah.
With a horse and a sword?
That's the thing.
She's not too far away.
No, it's really not. I think, you know, if her plan was she had this sword, she had this letter that she knows probably mostly nobody could read because most of the people who she'll be dealing with won't be able to read or write. So she thinks, I got this sword. I could show this letter to the stable boys and tell them I need a horse for Sir Lionel. They're not going to know what to do. And I could ride out with horse and sword. And I wondered if that would that be better than she was? Would she be better off than she was with the other kids after the holdfast?
I think it's a tough call. Definitely, she's more mobile, more hideable.
Right, yes.
Doesn't have to protect anyone else who gets captured for their stupidity.
Right.
But she is totally on her own and
so dangerous,
fairly defenseless out there. Yeah.
Yes, that's the thing.
She could also keep that note if she did run into like a Lannister patrol, saying, "Oh, this is an important message for the people at the front. I've been sent by. I've
been sent by Weese."
It looks like it's signed Weese, but that's actually Tywin Lannister's.
Yeah, I honestly think between the two options of her riding out like a knight with a sword and a horse, I think her blending in with the camp followers probably would be the safer route if she could, just...
Yeah, and that way she's heading in the right direction.
Exactly. They're heading west. We know this. So head west with a large force and just blend in, She's got I assume when they say camp followers, they mean people who, like, blacksmiths, cooks, that are like, things cooks, like that.
Prostitutes.
I mean, you could certainly find work. Now, of course, any time that a 10-year-old is going to go off on their own is going to be dangerous. Yeah. But it might, I don't know, the risk might outweigh the the reward might outweigh the risk in this situation.
Yeah. So holding the sword again reminds her, she feels a little bit empowered, more than the mouse she's been feeling like. But when Weese slaps her, that takes her back to her current situation.
Right. Yeah. So we know that this is what's keeping her here is not just the physical beatings from Weese, but also the threats of Vargo Hoat. So I'm wondering, now that we know he's dead, Weese is dead,
Right.
Will that make her more likely to try and escape now?
Right, yeah, I mean, one could imagine that she could escape and never be noticed,
Right.
like once...
Yeah.
Why would the other servants, apart from the fact they've got more work to do, why would they even mention it to anyone?
And who... It's not like there was like a boss that, with Weese that would even know who this girl is and what her role is. So, yeah, I just wondered that maybe that will make her more enticed to try and leave. But now, of course, the camp followers and the army have already left, so she'd have to get going really quickly to try and catch up with them. But I feel like
camp chaser than a camp follower.
I feel like this slap is the moment when she decides she's going to whisper his name. And like we alluded to at the beginning, you get it. I mean, obviously the other men, Tywin, Sir Gregor, are more important, but she's 10. It's got to be incredibly hard to pass up removing him. He is an awful and constant, dangerous presence in her life. You'd have to think,
And look, I'm going to express some sympathy here. When I was about 18, I got punched by a guy from my school at a disco. And if I had Jaqen H'ghar...
You should see Simon's face right now.
To this day.
Your face was cracking me up. He looked like
but then again,
Sir Gregor.
I am not in the middle of a world-changing war. If I was, I might use my Jaqen H'ghar 3 wishes elsewhere.
Yes. I mean, you could certainly rationalize Weese a lot more than Chiswick. Chiswick was just an angry reaction to an awful story. At least Weese's death actually helps her. Chiswick's death did nothing useful.
But few deserved it more than Chiswick.
Except for Sir Gregor.
Well, yes, true.
She's hearing this story of this terrible situation, and yet she picks Chiswick, the one telling the story, not Sir Gregor, the knight that let it all happen.
Yeah.
But, it's not until she sees these men riding toward battle with her older brother, and she sees how formidable and intimidating this force is, that she realizes, oh no, I could have taken some of these people out, and instead I wasted it on Chiswick and Weese.
Yeah.
If she was going to pick someone from that story, sure would have been nice to have picked Sir Gregor, but...
Yeah. But Gregor's leaving with Dunsen, Polliver, Raff the Sweetling. These are all people on her list, right? Because Dunsen took Gendry's bull helmet, Polliver stole Needle.
Yeah, and then when he's riding out in this scene here, she sees him wearing Gendry's helmet. So,
okay.
But Dunstan was the one that originally took it.
Right, yeah. And then Raff the Sweetling is the one who killed Lummy.
Yeah, right.
Which is definitely...
So that's why those folks are on her list. If you're trying to remember, it's pretty easy to remember why Cersei and Joffrey and Sir Gregor are on the list. But these three might be a little bit trickier to remember.
So Arya runs into Gendry in the armory. She's not sure she wants to talk to him. This is something I've forgotten about, that she blames him for her capture.
Right. Yes.
If he hadn't got himself captured, she would not be here. So.
Right. So back in Arya 5, when they came across that village along the God's Eye, Gendry and Arya went to scout for food at the village, and Gendry tried to sneak around the other side of the village and got caught and taken to the storehouse. And of course, she could have left him and saved her and Lamy and Hot Pie and Weasel, but she and Hot Pie went to rescue him, and Hot Pie gasped when the crow landed on him and they got caught. And that they took them back to Lamy, and Weasel was gone, and Lamy was injured, and that's when Wrath the Sweetling drove the spear through Lamy's throat. So that's what she's referencing there.
I'd forgotten that Weasel was still in the wind. Hope she's doing okay.
I do too, yeah. She's a little toddler in the wind. That can't be a good thing.
No. Again, maybe she's riding Nymeria.
That's what we can hope. That's right. You could do fan fiction about that story.
Yeah. So Gendry brings her some sort of troubling news that Hot Pie is asking questions about her. He heard her shout Winterfell at the Holdfast, which she most assuredly did.
She did, yep.
Gendry comes up with a plausible, no, it was go to hell, not Winterfell.
Right.
Thinking
which
on
even
his feet,
Arya's like,
good.
That's kind of lame. I don't think I would have yelled that. But I wondered, it's been a while since the Holdfast, and yet just the day before this conversation, Hot Pie asked Gendry, did you hear Arya yell Winterfell, or Aery yell Winterfell instead of, when at the fighting? And I wondered if he's maybe starting to put things together that Arya is more than just a...
Does he know she's a girl?
He knows now she's a girl, yes.
Hot Pie does, right. So yeah, maybe...
Why bring it up now? It's been quite a while.
I mean, it's going to be playing on your mind like, wow, she was really hiding from us, but piecing it together that she's Arya Stark seems like a long...
Oh yes,
long
I agree.
stretch.
Quite the reach. Yeah. But maybe he's thinking, we found her in King's Landing, which is where the Stark girl went missing, and she pretended to be a boy, and she was riding north with the Night's Watch recruiter, and she's shouting Winterfell going into a battle, and just thinking, that's all weird facts.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe it's hearing something like Arya Stark's missing from King's Landing made him go, wait a second.
Right.
That boy who's a girl shouted Winterfell at that battle.
Yes, who we picked up in King's Landing.
Yeah. But she does consider adding Hot Pie's name, giving Hot Pie's name to Jaqen, and she probably isn't serious, but in actual fact, she probably is, because it's very dangerous for her. If Hot Pie is getting suspicious and maybe would turn her in for a reward.
Right, yes.
She really might want to silence Hot Pie.
I don't know that at that moment she was serious, but if she did take time to think about it, she might realize, this could be a serious danger to me. I think she did say, I can't let Hot Pie, or she thinks in her head, I can't let Hot Pie figure that out, or something along those lines.
Well, Hot Pie probably would be not figuring it out, so...
Right. I don't know that Hot Pie is quite suspicious,
but, yeah. So on the way to the brewmaster, on her 17th task of the chapter, she runs into Rorge, one of the three she rescued, with two of his buddies. They're all wearing Amory Lorch's Manticore sigil. And he reminds her that he promised to rape her with a stick. So he is unrepentant. He is not a reformed character. He is exactly what he always was.
You had asked about that. I think it was last Arya chapter.
Would he also be grateful?
Rorge and Biter might show her some appreciation.
Yes.
In fact,
I am grateful. I am grateful that you rescued me, because now I can rape you with that stick.
She says, I saved you. And he says, I owe you more raping for that, I guess. So,
what a charmer.
But what that was in reference to, this was a while ago. This was back in Arya 2 when they were at that Ivy Inn, and the three men wanted more ale, the three men being Rorge, Biter, and Jaqen. And Rorge shouted for her to go get them more and called her Pimple. And Arya told him to shut his mouth and drew his wooden sword. And he said he'd shove that stick up her butt and do her bloody. And then Biter lunged at her, and she smacked him between the eyes with the stick. So, in case you'd forgotten, that's the scene that he's referencing.
Mm-hmm. So, he terrorizes her, but she blurts out she's looking for Jaqen. And weirdly, this stops him in his tracks. It feels like he's about to do her some mischief, but just hearing Jaqen's name, he's clearly very afraid of Jaqen.
Yeah, there was something there, because he was approaching her with menace, and then at that exact mention, he backs off and says that he's at the bathhouse.
Which is interesting. I mean, we know that Jaqen is obviously a skilled assassin, but an assassin isn't necessarily someone who's terrifying to you unless you happen to know he's an assassin.
Right.
Because it's not like feats of strength or sort of like feats of bravery. It's he will sinisterly kill you, without you even knowing it's coming. That feels like the kind of thing Robb might not even notice.
You might not be a very good assassin if people know that you are assassin-like. Yeah. The whole point of being an assassin is to look unassuming.
Yes. And if he said to Robb, I am a feared assassin, Robb would not understand. The only way to prove that to Robb would be to kill him.
Right. Or somebody in his presence, I guess. Right. Maybe it's disturbing to him, disconcerting the way that he doesn't use pronouns like
right.
Personal pronouns like I and me.
Rogue's big on grammar.
Yeah. But seeing Rorge here with these two other Lorchmen, as well as Biter and Jaqen, are also in the service of Sir Amory Lorch, it made me wonder if maybe Yoren yielded that they might have been okay.
Yeah, I think I thought about this a little bit, and obviously he was worried about everyone because people like Lomi are useless,
right?
And so they might have just got put to death.
That's
Hot
a good
Pie
point.
too, perhaps. But I think probably he fought for Arya because he couldn't afford Arya to be swept up because she might have been put to death. She was too small to be useful, kind of thing. Or if she got taken prisoner, it might come out who she was. So he felt he had to fight to protect her. That's my guess on that one.
You're right. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. Yeah, I could see some of that. Yeah, he was looking to protect the lowest common denominators like Lomi and Hot Pie,
right?
Rather than the adult fighting.
But he might have yielded. He might have yielded without Arya present because he might have risked Lomi and Hot Pie. But with Arya in the mix, he felt he couldn't.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if they yielded, maybe they would all be taken into Lorch's service, and later, Tywin, when they got to Harrenhal, Tywin might have allowed Yoren to continue on his way without his recruits.
Right.
But yes, you're right. I had not thought about him protecting specifically Arya, but also the younger boys who Lorch might not find any use for.
Yeah. So as Arya watches Tywin and his force ride out to battle, she realizes the mistake she's made, that Weese and Chiswick don't really matter. She feels like she could have ended the war if she just whispered Tywin.
I agree.
And certainly Gregor deserved a whisper.
Yes. Yeah, but, you got to imagine a 10-year-old needs to... their first thought is, Weese is the most dangerous person in my world personally.
Right.
You can't really expect her to think on the grand scale of, until she sees it. She looks out, she sees all these dangerous looking men riding toward battle with her brother. Then it dawns on her.
Right.
Oh, those were the important ones.
And actually, what's interesting is with the TV show, because she isn't doing these drudgery tasks, she is listening to the information she knows much better in the show.
Oh, yeah.
So she doesn't really have that excuse. But when I get to what remains of the comparison to the television show, I will explain why she does not choose Greg or Tywin as her second
only
name.
Thing left for that section.
So Weese is dead in the yard. His own dog is on his chest, lapping the blood from his throat and chewing on his skin. Well, you beat a dog, you get what you deserve, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree, but how did Jaqen control the dog to do that? Chiswick's death seemed standard enough, a good push off the wall walk. But this one, how did he get his own dog to attack and kill him? I wondered if maybe he's got some sort of warging abilities like Bran or something.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility that he got into the dog and the dog did it for him. Right.
Yeah. There might be a rational explanation, like he doused Weese with steak-scented perfume or something like that. But
I like that idea. But I also like the idea that when he did get into the dog's mind, he found that the dog really wanted to kill Weese.
It was very easy to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't take much convincing.
Exactly.
Because the dog never seemed to be... There never seemed to be a danger of the dog attacking Weese. She attacked other people on Weese's behalf.
Right.
But
maybe it was like a really
Weese.
sweet-natured dog, and it felt like it was being forced to do things it just didn't like.
Right. That was the final straw.
Right.
Just pushed too far.
All right. Do you have some background for us?
I do. It's So I thought about doing another background history on Harrenhal, but I feel like there'll be time for that. This chapter, while Arya's watching all the men line up to ride off out of Harrenhal, she mentions a ton of sigils.
Okay.
And I just went through and looked up the house for each sigil. So I'm going to go through them in the order that she went through them when she was seeing them. So
I tell you what, I'm going to guess them. You say the sigil, I'm going to guess them.
okay.
All
right. The Red Ox.
I haven't a clue.
House Prester.
Okay.
The Golden Mountain.
Ooh, no clue.
House Lefford. Purple Unicorn.
Not a clue.
House Brax. The Bantam Rooster.
Oh, University of South Carolina?
Oh, I was so close. That's the Gamecocks. The House Swift. I thought you had it.
Ah, yeah.
The Brindled Boar of House...
I know this. Crake Hall.
Yes, of House Crake-Hall. Yes,
that one I
job.
knew.
I bet that was a Lord Walter Frey reference. He was married to a Crake-Hall.
Right, that's right.
The Badger of House...
Don't know.
Liddon. House Liddon.
Okay.
Silver and Green Ferret.
Nope.
House Farron.
Ooh, it was almost named after themselves.
Yes, very close. The Juggler.
Ooh, I like that one. No idea.
Of House Falwell.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Lord of House Falwell is Lord Jerry. No.
Lord Jerry.
the Sunbursts of...
Oh, that sounds like Dawn, but I'm guessing not.
House Kenning.
Okay.
The Peacock.
No clue.
House Serret. Dagger and Chevron.
No idea.
House Foot.
Okay, I only got one right.
Yeah. Then there's 3 comic book references, which I only realized the last one. I didn't know the first 2 because they're much. They well predate me, but the Wiki of Ice and Fire tipped me off to this. House Black Hood of, the Black Hood of House Banefort is from, the Black Hood was a comic from MLJ Comics, later became Archie Comics, and then in 2010, DC Comics picked up Black Hood. And then there is Blue Beetle, and that's from House Betley. Okay. And the Blue Beetle first appeared in comic in 1939 by Fox Comics. Now DC owns it. And then, of course, we all do know the Green Arrow. He was one of the members of the Justice League. And that's House Sarsfield. And DC owns the Green Arrow. And his first appearance was in 1941 in More Fun Comics. And then
they're really old.
Yes, they were all back. I think I didn't write down the date from the Black Hood, but it was like 1940 for the first appearance, right. Which is why I hadn't heard of any of these. But then the last banner she sees, of course, is the 3 Dogs banner.
Clegane!
Clegane, you got it.
I knew that one. Okay. The long presaged comparison with the television show. So, as I've said, Arya's story really starts to diverge quite a bit. She's in Harrenhal, but there's no Weese. She can't go outside the castle. The gates are very much manned. She's acting as a cupbearer to none other than Tywin Lannister. He seems suspicious of her. For example, he recognizes her accent as northern.
Oh.
And she refers to him as my lord, and he says a commoner would say my lord.
Right.
So he's a little bit suspicious of who she is.
Yeah.
He constantly uses her smarts to embarrass his useless lieutenants. Mostly this whole thing of putting them together is just excuses to create dialogue scenes between the two of them, which are excellent. Really, that is what this first new Game of Thrones World of Ice and Fire spin-off should have been on HBO. It should have just been Tywin and Arya chat.
Right.
Because every
chats with Tywin and Arya.
Every scene is excellent with the two of them. It really is. Charles Dance is terrific as Tywin. And so this gave them a chance to beef up his screen time, because obviously he has no screen time in the book, basically.
Yeah, just seen in a distance, riding here and there.
Right. By putting him with Arya, we got a lot more of him.
Do you know, I watched a video where they had a lot of the main actors from A Game of Thrones on stage with George Martin, and they were taking questions from the audience. And one of the questions was, have any of you ever read the book? And I think only Kit Harington had read the book. Some of them said like friends and family members had read the books and told them about it. But Daisy Williams said she hadn't read the book, and she was surprised to learn that her character Arya never really met with Tywin. Because she really liked those scenes, I think was what she said.
Well, I mean, they are terrific scenes, really. The other thing is, it gives Arya's storyline in the TV show much more importance. What's actually happening to Arya is completely... I mean, apart from the 3 wishes, which she is blowing on things that only apply to her narrow storyline.
Right.
Her storyline is kind of meaningless, really. It's just like misery, But by moving her to this level, we got a lot of her storyline became way more important in the TV show.
Sure. Yeah.
So her second death is Amory Lorch. Basically, there's written instructions, intelligence lying around on the table, and when she's cleaning up, she palms one. Now, I'm not exactly sure what she's planning to do with it. I mean, she goes off and reads it, so she learns something about troop dispositions or something like that. But I'm not sure what she's planning to do with it. Amory Lorch catches her with it in his hand. And he's like, what's this? And he can't really read, so he's not sure what it is. But he grabs it and her and starts dragging her to Tywin. And she realizes she's going to be in big trouble. She slips out of his grasp, runs to Jaqen, and says, Amory Lorch!
He's right behind me!
In the scene, once she slips away, Amory Lorch just keeps going to Tywin.
Oh, okay.
Next scene is Tywin in his room alone, knock at the door. He says, come in. Door opens, and Amory Lorch falls forward, dead, with a dart in the back of his neck. And Jaqen, by the way, says, I can't do it on demand. What are you talking about?
It's not how this works.
You give me a name, not a timeline. Good grief. But he runs off and does it, so.
It's amazing in that situation, like you've just described, that she didn't choose Tywin.
Yes.
Like all the stuff you've just explained in this comparison with the TV show, it's really hard to believe she wouldn't have chosen Tywin.
Right. Run in there and kill Amory Lorch before he tells Tywin.
Wait a second.
Hang a second. The other thing I'd like to mention about that is the fact that in 8 seconds she's able to find Jaqen H'ghar in Harrenhal.
Right.
Luckily, TV show Harrenhal is 1,600 square feet, He's either in the kitchen or the spare bedroom.
3 bedrooms. Oh, man.
Pedantry Corner, you had something.
Well, it's just I don't really get the point of Weese writing notes for Arya to run around with to his contemporaries. I can't imagine many, if any of them can read. I'm actually quite surprised that Weese can read and write.
Right. Yes, you do raise a good point, yes. So, if Amory Lorch can't read,
right,
it feels like Amory Lorch is...
I was trying to think why Weese might be able to read. When you hear the voice that Roy Dotrice does for him in the audiobook, it's really even harder to imagine that this guy can read, because he just sounds like so dopey. Mm-hmm. But maybe as the understeward, he needs to be able to do some basic reading and writing.
You can argue that one away, but yeah, it's a good point. I mean, especially sending her off to people who almost certainly can't read. Even if
that's my point. Yes,
because
he's just practicing his letter writing, I guess.
Right. I mean, I would give her the note and say, what it says is, I want 12 barrels and you owe me 5 coins, you know.
Right.
News and notes.
Well, the first thing, newsworthy, is that our podcast episodes are now available on Facebook, on our Facebook page. Facebook has a new feature where you can listen to podcasts in Facebook. So you just go to our Facebook page, click on the podcast tab, and all of our episodes should be there. I've checked it out. Works.
Cool. Interesting.
So, yeah. But then we also got Discord news, or we got news that Jenny of Oldstones, the queen bee of our Discord page, she shared something on there that George Martin was recently on a podcast. So this is how confident I am in our listeners' faith. in their dedication to us is I'm going to mention that George Martin was on someone else's podcast. He was on the podcast. It
feels like he's a long way from being on ours, to be honest.
Stacey said to me last night, you guys really need to get Martin on your podcast. And I was like, I don't think you quite get how this works. I'm not sure that we are quite big enough to. This podcast...
I don't know. We swing for the fences, man.
That's right. But this podcast, which is that I'm referring to, is called "The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of," and I can't remember who exactly. I actually can remember who. I have it right here. It is run by like 2 executive producer type Hollywood types. So,
not fair.
Slightly bigger potatoes than you and me.
Yeah.
But anyway, on the podcast, which focuses on famous props and costumes and stuff from movies and TV, Martin talks about things he's collected over the years, like action figures and toys and set props and stuff like that. But the most interesting thing to us and our listeners is that he suggests there will be as many as 17 dragons featured in House of the Dragon. So Game of Thrones only had 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be cool. 17 dragons. That's going to be one heck of a CGI budget. Right.
Yes.
He also gave insight into his thoughts on Blood Moon. That was that first proposed prequel that had made some rumbles right after A Game of Thrones ended or shortly thereafter. He said that he didn't pitch that idea himself, that a number of shows were being developed by HBO writers who hadn't read the books, and he wasn't a fan of those ideas, and he didn't necessarily say because he wasn't a fan that none of them moved forward, but none of them moved forward.
Right.
So, but he was impressed by House of the Dragon co-creator Ryan Condal's knowledge of A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
I assume Ryan Condal got that knowledge by listening to The Ghosts of Harrenhal. So it all comes full circle.
Right.
All right. Now, so the next thing is not your typical review like we normally read. This is just a funny comment that someone left on our Facebook page. And so I thought you could share it.
Okay, so this is David posting on our 100th episode video. That's where Molly interviewed us.
No, that was 50th. 100 is the one we did live-ish.
Oh, the live one. Oh, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. He said, believe it or not, this is the first time seeing you guys on your great podcast. And I have to admit, I envisioned both of you the opposite of the way you look. Meaning for the past 40 episodes, I envisioned Simon looking like Mackelly and vice versa. I don't know what to say to this.
I responded to him and said, he's the one with hair and I'm the taller one.
But if I were you, I'd be insulted. I mean, really. Me, it feels like a compliment. You thought I was tall and good looking? Come on.
Oh, that's ridiculousness, that statement there. But I thought this was quite humorous, so
yeah,
I wanted to share it.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you enjoyed the video. That's good. All right, let's conclude this one. So Robb's battle tactics did what he had set out to do: got rid of Stafford Lannister's army and got Tywin out of Harrenhal.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that Robb has enough men to actually siege Casterly Rock, but clearly, as we've seen, he's taken at least Ashmark and therefore possibly other castles. He can do things that can make life miserable for Tywin and Tywin's people in the West. clearly.
Yeah. So Roose Bolton's foot soldiers are still at the Ruby Ford, at the crossroads. He could besiege Harrenhal. There is only a small force of Lorch's men, but it seems like a waste of both their time, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. That's why I was saying, would it be better for Roose Bolton's men to move to River Run after Tywin moves past and cut off the retreat there? Obviously, the reason to cut off Harrenhal, or to take over Harrenhal, would be to cut off a retreat to Harrenhal, but you got to get past River Run to get to Harrenhal.
Yeah, that's very true, actually, because even if he goes over the Golden Tooth and then chases Robb out of the Westerlands, if he's got no hope of regaining anything in the Riverlands, then he might stay in the Westerlands.
Yes, right.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Well, Arya's got one death left.
Mm-hmm.
There's no major players left in town, and left here in Harrenhal. But the rules are kind of unclear. Can she?
To me,
still
the rules
say,
are clear. She can say whoever she wants, and he's got to do it.
That's true. It's not that the rules are unclear. The rules are very open.
Right, yeah.
You say someone, I will kill them. Yeah. So can she still say, go track down Tywin Lannister and kill him?
Actually, the TV show cleared that up, because he said to her, it might be tomorrow, it might take me a year, but the person's dead when you give me that name.
Okay. I don't think that stipulation has been mentioned in the book. No.
But certainly that's what the lack of stipulation suggests to me, is that I will get it done,
Right, yes. But maybe, if Amory Lorch is still in town, maybe your comparison with the TV show will end up being a spoiler, and she'll end up taking out him for retribution for Yoren. She's on his list.
And if I were her, I would walk
all the way around. He's on her list.
He's on her list, yes. She could walk past Hot Pie and say, "You stop asking questions." Right. If you know what's good for you, big fella.
And here's just something just from Arya's mental health perspective. Should we be worrying that a 10-year-old is calling out names to be killed before the death? Did you hear that? Before the deaths that she had caused had always been in self-defense. To my memory, there was a stable boy that she killed trying to get out of the Tower of the Hand during the Lannister sack of the tower there. And she obviously killed some men at the Holdfast with Amory Lorch when they attacked Yoren and that group. You could certainly make an argument that Weese's death was in self-defense, as he was a constant danger to her. Not so much Chiswick, he was just a bad guy.
Yeah.
So.
We've talked about this before. It's definitely not healthy, but
right.
Neither was getting punched in the face by Weese, so that has now stopped.
Yes, right. Yes, him you could make an argument for. I think it's just the general idea that a 10-year-old is calling out deaths to people.
And Weese's death does make it more possible for her to escape now. She could,
right.
Like you said, go with the camp followers or go it alone somehow.
Yeah, both have their inherent risks.
Yeah.
But so does staying, who knows what, she stays in Harrenhal, that, it could be risk there as well.
Yeah. Anyway, let's draw a line under this one. As always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at ghostsharrenhal. We're on Facebook, where you can listen to the podcast, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord.
And if you please go out and leave us a 5-star rate and or a glowing review, we really would very much appreciate that. It means so much to us if you just take a few minutes to go do that, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts.
We'd be much more likely to get George Martin on the show if we had like a high 5-star rating.
Exactly. Yeah, see, you do your part, we'll do our part. You shoot us up the rankings, we'll work on getting Martin on here. And if you do leave us a glowing review, we just might read it on a future episode.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.